Russia is prepared to suffer high losses in its offensive in eastern Ukraine in a ploy aimed at weakening Western support for Kyiv, rather than achieving operational objectives, U.S. intelligence reported, as maps showed the latest situation on the ground. Declassified intelligence shared with the U.S. Congress on Tuesday outlined how Russia has made no significant gains in the push launched in October in the Avdiivka-Novopavlivka axis in the western Donetsk Oblast, in which Moscow's forces have suffered 13,000 casualties and lost 220 combat vehicles. A source familiar with the assessment told CNN that Russia had lost 87% of the 360,000 active-duty ground troops it had prior to launching its invasion of Ukraine, as well as 2/3 of its pre-invasion tanks. U.S. National Security Council spokesperson Adrienne Watson said that Russia's military leadership believes that despite its high losses, a military deadlock will drain Western support for Kyiv, the New York Times reported. This chimes with the assessment by the Institute for the Study of War, ISW, which said on Tuesday that Russian forces are timing these costly offensive operations when ground maneuvering is difficult, with ongoing conversations in the West about continued support to Ukraine. Concerns over U.S. support to Ukraine are growing after months of infighting in Congress over military aid for Kyiv, with a $61 billion funding request stalled. On Tuesday, U.S. President Joe Biden announced that the White House had allocated $200 million in drawdown funds for Ukraine during President Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington, D.C. David Silby, associate professor of history at Cornell University, said that Zelensky had arrived in the U.S. at a difficult time as the West shifts its attention to the Israel-Hamas war and amid political wrangling in Congress. Without that Western aid, Ukraine's ability to continue fighting is deeply in question, Silby told Newsweek. They simply don't have the resources to build the massive amount of munitions needed to continue fighting. Russian forces in Ukraine have lost more than 1,300 soldiers and a dozen artillery systems in the past 24 hours, Kyiv has said, as the human cost of the grueling war rises. Moscow has lost a total of 342,800 troops since it launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in late February 2022, according to the General Staff of Ukraine's military. Kyiv's destruction of 12 of Russia's artillery systems in the past day brings Moscow's total reported losses to 8,088 systems. Ukraine's figures are the latest indication of the staggering human cost of the attritional war. It is difficult to get a sense of exactly how many of Moscow's elite soldiers, paratroopers, tank crews, conscripted convicts, and mercenary fighters have been killed or injured. But Western analysts believe Russia has sustained hundreds of thousands of casualties in the almost 2 years of war. On Tuesday, Reuters reported that nearly 90% of Russia's pre-war personnel were now dead or injured, citing a source familiar with a declassified U.S. intelligence document. This amounts to around 315,000 Russian troops either killed or injured in the many months of casualty-heavy warfare. In mid-November, the UK's Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, told British lawmakers that London believed around 302,000 Russian personnel had been killed or wounded since the start of all-out war. Russia is now frequently losing more than 1,000 soldiers in a day, according to Kyiv's statistics. This has coincided with the start of Russia's concerted push on the heavily fortified frontline industrial town of Avdiivka, which Moscow launched on October 10th. The weeks between October 10th and late November had likely seen some of the highest Russian casualty rates of the war so far, the British Defense Ministry said last month. Since Moscow embarked on its offensive to encircle Avdiivka, it has sustained more than 13,000 casualties around the town. National Security Council spokesperson Adrienne Watson told CNN this week. Like Russia, Ukraine does not publish tallies of its own losses, but Kyiv has also sustained eye-watering casualties. Ukrainian losses are likely lower than Russian losses, Newsweek was previously told. But any given number of casualties would wound Ukraine's military more than it would Russia's much larger force. Russia's military does not provide a running total of its estimation of Ukrainian losses, but said on Thursday that Kyiv had lost 665 fighters in the past day across the south and east of the country.
Держу!
Se bater, tu cai pro bunker.
Пострел! Ёбаный ты в рот!